Okay, take number two because my phone died. The first one was much better. Basically, enough people have asked me this that I wanted to make a video for my YouTube channel just to see if anyone might benefit from it. I just think it's a thing that a lot of people are kind of missing the ball on, especially if you started lifting around. When I started lifting, you heard like this whole rah rah, there's no such thing as overtraining, only under recovering, right? And there is a good message somewhere in there. Basically, it's that the people who worry about overtraining aren't actually overtraining, especially they mostly just have bad habits outside of the gym that's leading to their failure to recover. It's not actually the workload in the gym. So there's a message there, even though the statement is objectively false. It's not. It's not true. There is such a thing as overtraining. It's a medically documented phenomenon, but there's a message there. But I think, and people just say, "Oh, sleep more, eat more, sleep more, eat more. You'll be able to do more volume." But I think there's a big third part of that equation, the recovery equation, that leaves out, right? Because sleeping more will help you recover to a point. Eating more will help you recover, especially eating better. That was the other thing that was kind of left out back in the day. But the other one is maximizing your NEAT. NEAT is non-exercise energy thermogenesis, right? It's the amount of calories you're expending on activity that is not exercise. A good proxy for this is steps per day. That's why people have like pedometers, and that way you kind of have a good general gauge of your NEAT. People who work manual labor jobs might have a lot of upper body motion that's not documented in their NEAT, but people who work manual labor jobs probably don't need to worry about their NEAT. It's those of us who are students or work a desk job that really need to worry about maintaining a certain level of NEAT, right? Because during this quarantine, a lot of people have been texting me about how banged up they feel and how they're not recovering, and they're really confused because they're sleeping more than ever. They're like, my nutrition is dialed for once in my life because I got nothing better to do, and I'm actually recovering worse based on the same workload, and that's because their NEAT has fallen off. It's pretty well documented scientifically that the best way to recover between difficult bouts of exercise is not just lying in bed and doing nothing, as much as like that does sound logical. To do nothing is the way to counteract doing a lot. But it's pretty well documented that the best way to recover between difficult bouts of exercise is submaximal bouts of exercise. Active recovery is a very well documented phenomenon. There's a lot of physiological reasons, right? We know delayed onset muscle soreness is just because of like muscular damage. It's not lactic acid buildup in the muscle, but flushing lactic acid from the muscle is important. Your lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, so it relies on muscular contraction to drive the lymphatic fluid out. Your blood pressure falls in your veins, so it also relies on muscular contraction to drive blood back from your legs, right? Because gravity is resisting gravity and there's not much pressure, so muscular contraction assists in driving blood back. Also, doing some kind of active recovery will increase the rate of blood flow to the area, right? Where if there's damaged muscle in your leg after a leg workout, increasing the rate that blood flows to it, nutrients flow to it, will only improve your recovery. This is a very well documented phenomenon. I'm not going to provide a citation. You're absolutely welcome to spend your day on Google Scholar or PubMed. I'll hang my hat on that. It's like I try to avoid absolute statements, but some degree of active recovery is better than doing nothing, right? And so for powerlifting, that active recovery can just be maintaining a high NEAT in most cases, right? So that's why walking does work okay. I think a lot of the big bash on walking is that it's not that hard and it's not going to get you in particularly good shape, but you also don't need to be in particularly good cardiovascular shape to powerlift. You just need to have some level of condition that is conducive to recovering between workouts. Dropping below that is bad, and I think walking is enough to keep you at that threshold. Someone like Carlos Reyes, who I really look up to, would say, "Oh, it's better to do actually hard conditioning, and stand efforting's walking is kind of gimmicky." That's true, but people will actually do it, and that's the real merit. Because like as much as we all like rah rah, I'll do whatever it takes, might not do your conditioning, right? Walking is doable, right? And for the goals of powerlifting, it's enough. So it's no different than saying, oh, like if I'm not going to do hill sprints, it's not worth it because I'm not going to get in good cardiovascular shape. That's like if someone could only train once a week, they're not going to do any because that's not enough to break a world record. One is a hell of a lot better than zero. The physiological difference between someone who's completely untrained and undertrained, or like too low of a training volume, still a huge difference. Still makes a large difference in your cardiovascular condition compared to doing no form of like cardiorespiratory fitness, right? So that's kind of my argument. And I highly recommend you look at your phone. If you have an iPhone, you can go in the health app. It's probably tracking your steps, whether you know it or not. I don't know how Androids work, but they might be. If they're not, you should. And take a look where you're at. The literature kind of supports this like magical 10,000 steps a day number. It's an arbitrary number that sounds nice, and we can just say correlational studies, people who take that many steps are dying less. Cool. There's nothing magical about the 10K number, so if you hit 8K a day, I don't care. That's been probably enough. But if you're egregiously off that number, you're probably leaving recovery on the table. So if I go into my phone, I had to go into my girlfriend's phone, and her phone said she was taking like 1,000 steps a day. I'm like, we probably need to fix that because she's always complaining that her legs are sore, right? Well, obviously, if you're in horrible cardiovascular shape and you're doing absolutely no like active recovery, you're not going to recover well. So that would be my takeaway: is please remember that's part of the equation. Is it's not just eating well and enough, and it's not just sleeping well and enough, but also make sure you stay moving. On your rest days, you shouldn't just lie in bed all day. You'll notice that, let's say you rest 1 day a week, like I do. If you lie in bed all a Saturday and eat all this food and lie in bed, you're gonna be stiff as shit and you're gonna feel like garbage if you go to squat the next day. Whereas, you'd be like, oh, but I recovered, I didn't do anything. I could go play a pickup basketball game and I probably feel better than had I done nothing, right? So that's my takeaway. I think everybody can implement this really simply just by doing walks at some point in the day. Doesn't have to be post meal. Like Stan talks about the benefits of walking post meal for insulin sensitivity and digestion. It's probably legitimate, but I think the real golden rule there is the fact that they're walking multiple times a day. And if you can break up the steps, it's better than doing them all at once. By the way, that's pretty well documented. Like your oxygen uptake and your metabolism stays elevated post exercise, and that's the argument for exercising through multiple submaximal bouts rather than one really long bout. Probably better, but if that's the only way you can get your steps in, do that.